picture this scenario for a second. You're sitting at a dinner party, or maybe, one of those really crowded, dimly lit restaurants.
Oh, yeah, where the acoustics are just terrible.
Exactly. Plates are clinking everywhere. There's this constant sort of low-frequency hum of chatter all around you. And the person sitting directly across the table leans in to tell you a story.
Right.
You see their lips moving. You catch like a few vowels, maybe a hard consonant or two. But if you're being completely honest, you have absolutely no idea what they just said.
Not a clue.
So you fall back on that universal social reflex. You know the one. You smile, you nod, and you let out a little, oh, wow, yeah, crazy.
It is the universal nod of auditory defeat. I mean, we've all been there. It's a very specific kind of isolation, really being surrounded by this massive wall of noise, but feeling entirely starved for actual communication.
Yeah, and we usually just brush that moment off, right? We tell ourselves, oh, it's just a room with terrible acoustics, or we fall back on the classic idea that, well, we're just getting older and our ears are getting a bit rusty.
Which is the easy out.
Right. But today, we are pushing past those easy excuses. We want to look at the actual biology of what is happening in that exact moment. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Our mission for you right now is to figure out how we can proactively protect our auditory health way before we find ourselves, constantly asking people to repeat themselves.
Yeah, we're really looking at how to move from this passive acceptance of hearing decline to an active defensive strategy for both the physical structures of your ears and the neural pathways in your brain.
To do that, we are unpacking this really comprehensive guide we received on natural hearing wellness. We'll be examining the daily habits that build up your auditory defenses at a cellular level.
Crucial stuff.
And we're also going to look closely at where targeted nutritional supplements actually fit into this biological picture. Specifically, the sources highlight a liquid formula called ECHOXEN.
Right, because the wellness space is notoriously crowded.
So crowded. And you deserve to know what the physiological science actually dictates, not just the marketing. So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with the physical reality of how hearing actually works.
Because understanding the baseline machinery is essential if you actually intend to protect it.
Exactly. And the first step here is to completely shatter the illusion that our ears are just like simple mechanical funnels attached to the sides of our heads.
It's so easy to think of them that way, though, like acoustic megaphones.
Right, just catching sound and dumping it into our brains. But looking at the research, the reality is far, far more intricate. The ear is not a plastic funnel. It's a highly sensitive, fluid-filled transducer that is, literally hardwired into the brain.
What's fascinating here is that hearing is not an isolated event happening on the side of your head. It is fundamentally a whole-body process. I mean, when you break down the journey of a single sound wave, the reliance on systemic health becomes totally obvious.
Yeah, let's trace that actual journey. So a sound wave hits the outer ear, which channels it down to vibrate the tympanic membrane, which we all know is the eardrum.
Yep.
And those vibrations pass through 3 microscopic bones in the middle ear, right? And they amplify that mechanical force and push against this fluid-filled, snail-shaped structure called the cochlea.
That snail shape is key.
Right, and inside that fluid are thousands of these microscopic hair cells, known as stereocilia. As the fluid ripples, these hair cells bend, and that physical bending opens these tiny ion channels, which instantly converts the mechanical movement into an electrical signal.
And that conversion from a mechanical force to an electrical impulse, that is a massive metabolic undertaking. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
That electrical signal then travels along the auditory nerve to the brain's temporal lobe, which translates that little burst of electricity into recognizable data.
Like a car horn or music.
Or the words of your friend across that crowded dinner table.
The speed of that translation is just staggering. I mean, it happens in milliseconds. But the sources point out a critical vulnerability here. The way I like to think about it, it's like having a highly sensitive fiber optic microphone connected to a supercomputer, the brain.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. But for all of that to work, for that sequence to happen perfectly, you need several different bodily systems operating at peak capacity simultaneously.
You really do.
You need the structural integrity of the stereocilia. You need intact myelin sheaths on the auditory nerve to carry the signal. And critically, you need a massive uninterrupted power supply to fuel that supercomputer and the microphone.
And in the human body, that power supply is blood circulation.
Exactly. I was genuinely surprised at how many systems have to cooperate just to hear a simple conversation.
Well, it's because the inner ear is incredibly delicate, right?
Yeah.
And it's highly metabolically active, yet it has a surprisingly fragile vascular supply.
Fragile is an understatement.
Truly. It relies almost entirely on a single tiny blood vessel called the labyrinthine artery. There is no redundant backup network. It's essentially a dead-end street for blood flow.
A dead-end street. Wow.
Yeah, so if circulation drops, those stereocilia suffocate rapidly. Supporting your hearing actually means supporting your cardiovascular system and your nervous system just as much as the ear itself.
Which brings us to the things that actually damage this system, because hearing relies on this fragile network of nerves and that single tiny labyrinthine artery. The culprits of hearing decline extend far beyond the standard excuse of just getting older.
Right. Cellular degradation over time is a factor, certainly. But aging is often used as a scapegoat.
A scapegoat for what?
To mask cumulative environmental and lifestyle damage.
Okay, so we all understand mechanical damage from loud noises, right? If you stand next to a giant speaker at a rock concert, you are physically blasting those delicate stereocilia with massive sound waves.
Yeah, the shearing force literally snaps or flattens those microscopic hair cells.
But the guide introduces culprits that are far more sneaky, far more insidious. It highlights things like nutritional gaps and chronic stress. And I've got to ask, wait, we always blame loud concerts or aging.
Sure.
But how does chronic stress or, skipping your vitamins literally change how you hear? How does that reach deep into the inner ear to cause physical damage?
It all comes back to that dead-end street, the labyrinthine artery. We have to look at the physiological domino effect of stress. When you are chronically stressed, your endocrine system floods your body with cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Exactly. And elevated cortisol causes systemic vasoconstriction, meaning it physically narrows your blood vessels.
Meaning the labyrinthine artery, which is already microscopic, just gets throttled.
Right. The power supply to the cochlea is instantly restricted.
So the tissues are just starved of oxygen and nutrients?
Yes. And furthermore, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the inner ear is highly susceptible to oxidative stress, just like your heart or your skin. Every day, normal cellular metabolism and environmental toxins create free radicals.
Right. The guide talks a lot about free radicals.
You can think of these unstable molecules like cellular shrapnel bouncing around the tiny enclosed fluid space of the cochlea.
Ouch. Cellular shrapnel.
Yeah, and over time, this shrapnel causes microscopic scarring on the delicate tissues and nerve endings.
And if you lack the proper nutrition, you lack the antioxidants required to neutralize that cellular shrapnel before it actually scars the cochlea.
Exactly. And you also have to consider the neurological burden of stress. Chronic stress severely disrupts sleep architecture.
Which ruins your brain's ability to process things.
Right. Remember, the ear only sends the electrical signal. The brain performs the actual hearing. If your brain is exhausted from fragmented sleep, it lacks the cognitive bandwidth to filter out background noise and process those complex electrical signals.
Which is exactly why that dinner party scenario we talked about becomes so overwhelming. So we're looking at a compounding biological crisis here. Mechanical damage from noise, vascular starvation from stress-induced vasoconstriction, tissue scarring from cellular shrapnel, and an exhausted auditory processing center in the brain.
It's a harsh reality of modern life.
It really is. But here's where it gets really interesting. If our lifestyle habits, stress, poor circulation, bad diet, are driving the physical damage, then reversing those habits acts as a literal biological defense mechanism for the inner ear.
And this is my core belief knowledge is most valuable when it's applied. Once you recognize that the cochlea is at the mercy of your systemic circulation and your cellular health, true auditory wellness demands a whole-body approach.
Okay, so if the labyrinthine artery is easily choked off, leaving the ear starved of oxygen, how do we force traffic down that dead-end street?
Movement.
Right. The sources point heavily to cardiovascular physical activity, walking, cycling, swimming. It's wild to think that going for a swim is technically an ear care routine.
It really is.
Because we typically associate cardio with heart health or lung capacity, but a brisk 30-minute walk increases systemic blood pressure just enough to force fresh, oxygen-rich blood into the deepest, tiniest microcapillaries of the auditory system.
Yes, I want people to view their daily walk as a way to actively feed oxygen to their auditory nerves.
Yeah.
Routine cardiovascular exercise keeps the endothelial lining of those tiny blood vessels flexible and healthy.
Which prevents stagnation.
Exactly, preventing the stagnation that leads to cell death in the inner ear.
And the same mechanistic logic applies to the diet recommendations in the guide. It emphasizes leafy greens, berries, citrus, and specifically fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids.
The building blocks.
Right, because if the stereocilia inside a cochlea have to bend back and forth millions of times a day just to convert sound waves into electricity, their cellular membranes require extreme physical flexibility.
And that's exactly why those specific foods matter. Omega-3 fatty acids provide the specific lipid structures required to maintain the pliable phospholipid bilayer of those cell membranes.
So you are literally eating the structural materials that prevent the hair cells from becoming brittle.
Yes. If they're brittle, they snap under acoustic pressure.
Wow. And then the berries and the leafy greens provide the antioxidants, the chemical neutralizers that disarm the cellular shrapnel we talked about before it can scar the cochlea.
It's a perfect defense system if you feed it right.
And then we have sleep. The guide frames sleep not just as rest, but as a critical maintenance window for the nervous system.
Oh, sleep is non-negotiable. During deep sleep, the brain activates the glymphatic system, which flushes out the metabolic waste and neurotoxins that accumulate during the day.
So it's basically taking out the trash.
Exactly. A clean, well-rested brain maintains the cognitive sharpness required to isolate your friend's voice from the clinking plates at the restaurant.
Right. And of course, the physical defenses are mandatory too. Lowering headphone volume to reduce the mechanical shearing force on the hair cells, wearing ear protection at concerts.
Basic hygiene for the ears.
Yeah, and the guide really emphasizes giving your ears a recovery period after a loud event. Like, if you attend a loud sports game, appreciate a quiet environment the next morning to allow the temporary inflammation in the cochlea to subside.
Because it's about actively managing the cumulative mechanical burden over the span of your lifetime, rather than just, waiting for the damage to become permanent.
Absolutely. Now, I want to push back on something here. Let's play skeptic for a minute.
Go for it.
So, what does this all mean for the listener? If I'm doing all of this, if I am running 3 days a week to force blood down the labyrinthine artery, I'm eating salmon to maintain the lipid flexibility of my hair cells, sleeping 8 hours to clear metabolic waste, and managing my cortisol levels.
The perfect lifestyle.
Right, the perfect lifestyle. Why would I need to introduce a dietary supplement into the mix? Doesn't the human digestive system just flush out excess vitamins, essentially creating very expensive urine?
That is a highly relevant critique, honestly, of the supplement industry as a whole. In a purely theoretical, perfectly optimized biological vacuum, a pristine diet and lifestyle would be sufficient.
But we don't live in a vacuum.
No, we don't. We have to account for the realities of human digestion and the modern food supply. As we age, our gastrointestinal tract becomes less efficient at extracting specific micronutrients from solid foods.
Okay, how so?
Well, stomach acid levels change, and the enzymatic breakdown of complex proteins slows down.
So even if you are eating that giant spinach salad every day, your body might not be successfully extracting the required antioxidants from the cellular matrix of the plant.
Precisely the issue. Furthermore, many adults experience pill fatigue, or they struggle with the binding agents used in standard tablet supplements. Those often pass through the digestive tract only partially broken down.
Which completely defeats the purpose.
Right, and this biological absorption challenge is what has really driven the clinical interest in liquid botanical suspensions.
Which brings us directly to ECHOXEN. That's the liquid formula highlighted in the wellness guide we're looking at. The sources note that liquid supplements are rising in popularity specifically because they bypass some of those digestive hurdles associated with solid pills.
Offering a higher theoretical bioavailability, yeah.
Right. So explain how the liquid format changes things.
Well, a liquid suspension essentially pre-dissolves the plant extracts, vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. The goal is to provide the gastrointestinal tract with nutrients that are already in an easily absorbable format.
Bypassing the heavy breakdown process?
Exactly, rapidly delivering those building blocks and antioxidants straight to the bloodstream.
Okay, let's look at what ECHOXEN actually claims to do, based strictly on the provided text. It's designed to support healthy auditory function, overall ear wellness, healthy hearing pathways, mental clarity, and daily balance.
That's the list, yes.
It's utilizing these concentrated botanical compounds to combat the specific oxidative stress and nutritional gaps we mapped out earlier. But just to be clear for the listener, this isn't some magic potion that will instantly restore perfect hearing, right?
This raises an important question regarding Expectations versus reality and proactive health. It is absolutely vital to interpret these claims through the lens of physiological synergy rather than looking for a pharmaceutical silver bullet.
Because the guide is completely explicit on this point. ECHOXEN is a dietary supplement. It is not a medical treatment.
No.
It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, including profound hearing loss or structural damage. Like if someone is experiencing sudden, severe hearing changes, they need an audiologist, not a botanical extract.
100%. The underlying principle here is that a high-quality nutritional supplement functions as an alliance with your body's natural processes. It's not a replacement for them.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, introducing a liquid antioxidant suspension while simultaneously blasting your earbuds at maximum volume and functioning on 4 hours of sleep, that will yield zero benefit.
Because the mechanical and vascular damage will just outpace the nutritional support.
Exactly. It operates on synergy.
It's essentially a top-up mechanism. If you are actively managing your stress to keep those microcapillaries open and you're protecting your ears from mechanical shearing forces, then a formula like ECHOXEN can step in to fill the remaining age-related or digestive nutritional gaps.
Yes, it ensures the body has a constant bioavailable supply of the materials required to maintain the auditory nerve and the cochlear structures.
So it's really an additional defensive layer for adults who are already committed to the mechanics of proactive health and, recognize the absorption challenges that come with aging.
Precisely. It's another tool in a comprehensive toolkit.
Okay, let's pull all of these biological threads together to wrap up. We began this deep dive sitting at a loud dinner party, dealing with the isolation of not being able to parse a simple conversation.
The nod of defeat.
Right. And what we've uncovered is that hearing is a deeply complex, highly vulnerable metabolic process. It relies on a pristine structural environment inside the cochlea, a robust cardiovascular system, to force oxygen down a single microscopic artery.
The labyrinthine artery.
Yes, and a well-rested nervous system to instantly translate fluid ripples into coherent language.
Auditory wellness is not passive. That's the main takeaway. It requires conscious daily management of the mechanical, vascular, and nutritional stressors placed on the body.
We have seen that lifestyle habits act as literal defense mechanisms, and that targeted botanical suspensions, like ECHOXEN, can provide a bioavailable nutritional top-up to support those really delicate physiological pathways.
I completely agree. And, I want to leave everyone listening with one final thought to mull over today.
Hey, please do.
So we spent a significant amount of time detailing how the brain, the auditory processing center, is ultimately responsible for parsing the electrical signals sent by the ear.
Right, the brain does the actual hearing.
Exactly. The source text makes it abundantly clear that cognitive performance is a non-negotiable aspect of hearing in complex environments.
The physical ear acts as the hardware, but the brain serves as the software interpreting the data.
Spot on. So consider this thought experiment. If our brain's cognitive elasticity is just as vital as the physical health of the inner ear, could actively training our brains to process novel auditory inputs be the ultimate mental workout? Like as a way to complement our physical wellness routine.
So what kind of novel auditory inputs are we talking about? Like listening to new podcasts?
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about activities that force the brain to parse and interpret entirely new, complex sound patterns. Attempting to learn a new language as an adult, for example. Or picking up a musical instrument for the very first time.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have connected those dots.
The principles of neuroplasticity dictate that these activities physically build new neural pathways. So by forcing your brain to decipher, say, the subtle tonal shifts of a foreign language or the specific pitch frequencies of a piano key, you are actively demanding more from your auditory processing centers.
That is fascinating.
Right. It stands to reason that regularly challenging how the brain interprets complex sound could keep that neural software incredibly sharp, working in perfect synergy with the physical protections and nutritional strategies we discussed today.
Forcing the brain to build new auditory pathways as a defense mechanism. I love that. It transforms the act of learning a few phrases of Spanish or, finally taking those guitar lessons into a literal act of auditory rebellion against aging.
Auditory rebellion. That's a great way to put it.
That is a brilliant physiological concept to leave off on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the complex mechanics of hearing wellness. Stay curious, take active care of those pathways, and we will catch you next time.